Okay, we are live again. Hello, everybody. Hello, teachers, elementary teachers. We are running the second session of the week-long workshop series called Gardening in Your Classroom. Welcome. I'm going live in 3 different platforms. This is a free workshop. If you haven't registered, though, I do encourage you to go ahead and register so that you get the handouts and workbooks and presentation decks and all of that. And you can also participate in the giveaways that we're having and all of that good stuff. I'm gonna stall maybe for 30, 40 seconds to make sure that everybody finds me and everybody starts joining in. Please let me know that you are here. If you are watching from any of the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you should be able to comment, and this should be able to, the system should be able to show me all of the comments. So go ahead and do that. Let's wait for some comments to come in from the different platforms just to make sure that it's working. Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me. And we're going to get started very, very soon. Okay. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Great. So I'm going to put this on the screen again. If you haven't registered for this workshop, you are welcome to follow us, but you're not going to get all of the goodness that comes with the workshop if you're not registered. So this is the link, as you can see on the screen. Please go ahead and register so I can send you the handouts and the presentation decks, and you can participate in the giveaways as well. So let's look at the comments. Hello, hello. Hello, Judith. Hi, James. Great. At least I know that from YouTube and from Facebook, there are some people, I mean, the comments are coming in, so that's great. Hi, Nancy. Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Let me know where you're from and what grade you teach. That would be great. And oh, good, awesome. So I'm guessing that you guys can hear me. Otherwise, I would see some complaints in the comments. I don't see any. Everybody's good. You can see me, you can hear me. Very nice. Okay, so if you're registered, you know that we do have a class page, and the class page is actually going to has all of these recordings. So not everybody can participate live for all of these 5 workshops, and that's totally okay. All right, but it's all recorded on the class page, and you can refer to it later. And this is where the link is on the over there. Perfect. Hi, Nancy. Beautiful. We have people from Ontario. We have people from New Jersey. Nice. We have people from London. I'm guessing London, Ontario. If not, let me know. Okay, beautiful. Awesome. You can hear me, you can see me. Let me share my screen as well. No, not like that. Hold on a second. Let's go like this. Beautiful. And let me take the banner off so that it doesn't obstruct your view. Beautiful. Shall we get started? Awesome. Let's go for it. And continue putting your comments in the chat box from wherever you are coming from, so that if there's any questions, I can get them answered, and I'll do that at the end, because I do want to actually keep these short into half an hour. Hopefully, yesterday's sessions went longer, but we did actually put down some bases and some fundamentals, and those were important, and that's why it went longer. But we're going to get focused. Today's session is all going to be about tools and supplies and materials, and let's get that going. All right, so very quickly, as you know, if you don't know, this is what we're doing. I'm going live every day, and this is 5 classes at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. They're all recorded. If you haven't registered, go ahead and register. That's the link. And please participate and comment and ask your questions on all of that. If you're from YouTube and LinkedIn or Facebook, or if you're watching right on the class page and you don't have a place to comment, or if you don't want to ask your questions publicly for whatever the reason, you can always email me. Oh, by the way, I have to tell you this. Thank you so much for those of you who did email me your questions. Most of them, especially those ones that were technical questions related to our first session, and I have answered directly to you. There were some questions, and I thank you for those questions as well, that I haven't answered yet because those were about the upcoming program that I'm having after these free workshops, that OSS Classroom. I will answer those questions on Friday, if you don't mind, because during this week, from the feedback that I'm getting from everybody, there are some finishing touches that we're putting into that program, and the price and everything is being finalized, the cost and everything. So, but do ask those questions, because they do give me an idea, better idea of how better I can serve you. And rest assured that those questions will be answered as well. Okay, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep sending me emails and asking me questions. If you did ask a question that was technical and not about the program that's coming up, and I did not answer it, uh, please send it again. It might have slipped my eye or something like that. I am gathering all those questions together actually, and I will answer them on Friday so that everybody can hear the answers to everybody's questions, because it could be your questions that are being answered and you didn't ask them, or it's always good to hear other people's opinions and questions and get the answers to those as well. Okay, so let's get back to it. Okay, so this is the agenda very quickly. We did the first session yesterday, and the second session is about supplies and tools. We're doing that today. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about managing your time in a classroom garden. And on Thursday, we're going to be talking about what to do, what to teach in a classroom garden. And Friday, as I mentioned, is review, Q&A, lesson plan giveaways, and talking about OSS Classroom program that's coming up afterwards. Okay, are we good? Let's get started on the topic of today. Before we talk about tools and supplies and material, I do want to talk a little bit about what is the scope of a classroom garden, or at least the scope of classroom garden that I am talking about. Obviously, classroom gardens can be of many different types. And the scope of this one is growing food, but not just any food, because not every food can be grown indoors, and with the timelines that schools have to work with. So both of those are important. Excuse me, taking a sip of water here. Okay. So the scope of a classroom garden that we are talking about, it is about growing seedlings and short maturing vegetables, things like um, leaf lettuce and spinach and arugula and radishes and things like that, as well as seedlings of longer maturing vegetables such as tomatoes and all kinds of different things. Okay, now there are some things that we cannot grow in an indoor classroom, even to be transplanted in an outdoor garden later, because and those are mostly longer maturing root vegetables such as carrots, because they don't like to be transplanted. But other than those, anything else can be grown in a classroom, but we are not growing them to get to fruit essentially in the classroom, because those are longer vegetables and they actually get to fruiting at the end of summer, some of them next fall. And we, as you know, the timeline of a classroom garden does not, a timeline of a school garden, actually, a school timeline does not actually go very well with that, because school finishes at the beginning of summer, right? So that's the scope. And the reason I'm talking about the scope here is the tools that we need is different and a lot simpler actually for an indoor classroom. So we're not growing fruits and we're not growing long vegetables to all the way to harvest, which makes sense. I'm sure you understand. Now, just a quick review of space requirements. We talked about this thoroughly yesterday. We said that for a classroom garden, you need two types of spaces, an activity space and a caring station, or a series of caring stations. Now, and the tools for those are as follows. So what you need for an activity space are buckets for soil, buckets for seedlings placement. So you put the seedlings in those buckets and place them in your caring station. Seed starting cups, small watering cans. I'm going to go through each and every one of these one by one and tell you which ones I like, which ones I don't like, and the reasons behind them. And all of this comes from years and years and years of doing this in the classrooms. So where were we? Tablecloths, cleaning tools, tables and chairs, obviously. You would need marking sticks or tape and markers to write on, to mark, to know what it is the seedlings that you grew are, which ones are which. Aluminum foil, I'm not going to talk about this a lot because this is just, it's good to have around. In some cases, if you're not using buckets to protect your surfaces, it's always good to have that in mind, but we're not going to get into that too deeply. It's not one of the essentials. Spoons or tiny shovels, and I'm going to talk about that, why we need that. We do not need big shovels at all. This is a classroom garden. We're not in an outdoor garden, and we are not going to need any of those types of heavy, big, expensive tools. Now, if no water is in your classroom, if you don't have a tap in your classroom, or in your growing space, activity space, which most probably is going to be your own classroom, then a water storage container on wheels would be very, very good to have. Very good to have. And I'm going to talk about that in details. And if your activity space is not the same as your caring station, also a cart or some sort of a wagon, some sort of transport like tool essentially would be good. Not that you can't do it without, but it is good to have it so that you can transport your seedlings there. And that's all you need essentially for your classroom garden, for the activities. Now, what you need for your caring space, and you can see these students, they're actually these plants are actually out of the caring station right now, and they were taking them to the outdoor garden to transplant them. But if you are finishing your program with a classroom garden and you do not have an outdoor garden, as we talked about it yesterday, and that's totally okay too, because you can give away those seedlings and sell them in a market, and there's all kinds of, you can donate them to community gardens, all kinds of different things that connect your program to the community very well as well. So this is what these students are doing, but it was just a cute picture. I just wanted to put it there. So what you need for your activity space, oh, sorry. Hold on a minute. That's my mistake. This is for your caring station. Apologies for that. So let's go back to presentation. Hope you can see this. So what you need for your caring station is tables to place the seedling buckets on. You need sunny windows. Well, that's not a tool, but it's so important that I thought it's worth mentioning here, we did talk about this yesterday, so if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that. Make sure that sunlight, tons of sunlight, is shining on your plants when they are in their carrying station and growing, so that they grow well. If there's no sunny windows, you might need to think about grow lights with a timer and maybe a fan and maybe a tent. We're not going to talk about the fan and the tent much because it's probably not required anyway, but I'm going to quickly mention why. Um, but I do hope that you don't have to do this. Um, Here's the thing: in a lot of schools, what I have been hearing and seeing is that the first thing that comes to the educators' minds is that, oh, I need a grow light if I'm growing indoors. Not necessarily. We talked about this yesterday when we were talking about your spaces. Um, Go and look around your school. Even if your own classroom doesn't have sunny windows in the northern hemisphere, those would be windows that are not blocked by any buildings or trees that are south, east, or west facing. I'm sure you can find some. Well, not 100% of schools do have that space. I have seen schools that did require grow lights, but you usually don't. And your carrying station doesn't have to be in your own classroom. It can be somewhere else. It can be in a gym. It can be in a, well, gyms are probably not the best places for them, but if they do get sunlight and you can block the balls from going through them, then that's okay. But teachers' lounges, libraries, art rooms, there are spaces in your school that get sunny windows, and you don't have to go to grow lights. The grow lights are, well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. So I'm not gonna get carried away with one item because we're gonna talk about it when we get to that. And if there's no water in your space, you might want to think about water storage container on wheels. Oops, sorry about that. Again, that is embarrassing. For some reason, I didn't see this misspelling. Wheels. Okay, let's get help. Obviously, I can't spell. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so, and we're going to talk about every one of these. So let's go back to your buckets. So the type of buckets that I recommend, and this comes from experience, trust me on this, are these sturdy square white buckets. You can find them in dollar stores. Most of them have them. They are not very expensive, and you don't need a lot of them. And you need them to pour soil in them so that you can place it in the middle of your work tables for your students, like the one that's here. And then it can be used actually for the seedlings when they are prepared and planted to be placed in those buckets, and it can be easily transported then into the window at your carrying station or carrying stations by hand by your students, especially if the carrying station is close by. If it's in your own classroom, you don't even need like a cart or a wagon or anything like that to transport them. And and you can even use them for sub irrigation, which is something that I teach, something that we always do. It is super easy to do. And maybe I give you some tips and tricks about that in upcoming sessions. So you can use these buckets for many different purposes, and you want them to be sturdy, and you want them to be not too big and not too small, so that like around 9 to 10 of these um, um, party cups actually fits them, and they don't get very heavy, so that your students can actually, one student can pick it up and move it around. And you want it to be sturdy. You don't want those aluminum cooking buckets and things like that are flimsy, because that can create a huge mess, and it's really not practical to have them. So these are the buckets that I really recommend for you to have. For your seed starting cups, these party cups are really, really good. Try to get those that are better quality, so that they don't break on you very quickly. These are big enough for longer growing without having to transplant again and again and again. You know those, there are those small seedling starting black plastic thingies. Those are very fragile. They are plastic, and I'm an environmentalist. We don't like plastic. We don't like throwing away plastic, especially. So I don't recommend those for a few reasons, because they're very small. So as soon as your plants grow a little bit, you're going to have to transplant them again, and that's another activity, and that you don't want to add to your plate. If these are bigger, so they're like party size cups, and if you get a good quality, they're not going to break on you. You can wash them and use them for years and years and years to come. You can use these, you can poke holes at the bottom and use them for sub irrigation even, and they're pretty good. Yes, they're plastic, but they're good type of plastic for this purpose, so I do recommend them. And also they're flexible and easy for the eventual transplanting that's going to be happening to these seedlings, if they are seedlings that you're giving away or donating or transplanting in your own garden. um, Whatever, these are really good ones, because you don't want those. Oh, I wish I had some to show you here. You don't want those clay pots. They are small, but they are not flexible. You want the kids or whoever is transplanting them later to be able to flip it over, play with the cup, so that the whole entire soil comes out easily without having to dig it out, because the roots would be destroyed if you have to do that. For seedlings, you do need plastic or some sort of flexible material. um, and they are wide enough actually, so that you can plant single seeds in them, and you can even plant, sprinkle type seeds like the herbs and things like that as well. So they are good enough for almost everything you want to plant, in terms of size, length, width, in terms of flexibility, and in terms of sturdiness, so that they don't break on you very quickly, so you can use them, wash them, and reuse them years and years to come. Now, small watering cans is another thing that you do want to have around your activity station, because water is always required. When we plant any seed, the first thing we do after that is water it, so that it wakes up and starts growing and germinating. So you want good sizes, small watering cans that are easy for young students to carry and handle. You want one for every workstation. We talked about spaces and how to utilize your space yesterday, and remember I told you create workstations. You want one at least for every workstation, or one that's shared between two workstations. Um, and there are two types. There are the type that has direct nozzle. Those are a little bit difficult to water. They are a little harsh, and they can splash the soil out, and seeds can fall out and all that. But they're very good for sub irrigation buckets. So to pour water in sub irrigation buckets. The shower head nozzles are very good for watering on top of the soil. So it's good to have both of these, depending on which one of these types, sub irrigated or not, you want to grow with your students. Table cover for your classroom is crucial to have, because gardening is working with soil, and working with soil means getting messy, especially, well, not especially, but usually sometimes sometimes younger students are messier than older students, but depends on your student as well. So mess will happen, okay, when you're working with soil and with a bunch of students. So you do want to cover your surfaces and your work places. I do not recommend plastic table covers. because they're plastic, and I'm an environmentalist. I prefer not to have plastic as much as possible. You can use paper, but paper is also waste, and it tears up. And if water is thrown on it, it seeps through. It's not the best idea, actually. So fabric, cloth, um, table covers are what I recommend for you to have for all of your workstations. Try to have thick ones so that the dust of the soil does not seep through it. And I recommend them because they're washable, they're durable, they're environmentally friendly, and they're reusable. So you can throw them in the wash after each session at your own home, and then bring them back for the next session. Cleaning tools, obviously, we know why we need them. You need a broom, and you need a broom and duster, and you need, so I'm going to go through this one very fast but I had to put it in here because sometimes the educators don't think that far, and then the classroom gets so messy that the caretakers or the building managers and cleaners get really, really upset with you. You do want to have the tools available so that your students can clean up after themselves, so that we are all happy. Okay, tables and chairs. This is very, very good to have. You do have them in your classrooms. There are two types of them. Some of them are bigger and they're shared between your students, and some of them are smaller. For the smaller ones, as I mentioned in the yesterday's session when we were talking about utilizing your space, it's better to put a few of them together and create a bigger space and put a tablecloth on the entire thing. Put your soil in the middle so that you create workstations. Obviously, right now with COVID and everything, there are considerations to have. Do as I am telling you, as much as social distancing actually lets you do. I know I do understand that there are restrictions that you have to follow and all that. I'm just letting you know what's the best efficient way to do this, because I've done it in many different ways. You might not want to use your tables. That's also doable if in your classroom or your activity space, wherever you choose it to be, you have like a carpet or a big area that the students can sit on the floor and do their work, but it's much easier if you do them at the tables. Next thing, marking sticks and or tape and markers. Yes, so when you do create your seedlings, grow your seedlings, like plant your seedlings, the you do need these. You do need to mark it with something, um, but these markers, the individual wooden markers, you probably aren't going to need them much, aren't going to use them much, because as you remember, the way I suggest you to do, let's say you have 20 students and all the 20 students planted the same thing or two different types of seeds. So you have two buckets, let's say. One of them is, let's say, tomatoes, and the other one is, I don't know, lettuce, right? So all you need to do is to mark the bucket with the name of the plant that you planted and the date. So the name and the date. These are the two important things to put on there. Now, let me come closer so that I can tell you something really, really important. So, this is a little bit going off the topic of tools and supplies, but it is important. One of the things that I always do in my programs is that I do not allow students, well, allow is a little bit harsh and strong word, but I recommend to the students that they do not, so let's say that every one of them plants one of these party cups, right? They don't need to write their name on it. What I tell them is, all of you are growing all of this for all of you. You're growing it actually for the community. You're growing for the purpose of learning. You're not going to take your own cup home. That's not going to happen. This is for the community. This is for the classroom, it's for the school, and it's for the community. And that's why you don't need to have your name on your cup. Another reason for that is not all seeds grow. the best types of seeds with the best quality maybe germinate 98%. And well, that's like a super duper percentage. Some seeds grow like 50%. Some seeds grow like 60, 70%. Not all seeds grow. And if the cup that that student with the name on it planted didn't grow, that doesn't mean that that student did anything wrong. Or so competition and comparing yourself to other people and all of that is out the window, completely unnecessary, and will not happen if the students don't have their names on them. So you don't need those types of markers. All you need is something to mark the bucket, and that's why I recommend just simply having a tape that you can write on with a marker and just put it on the, let me bring this back like that so that you can see it better. I hope I wish I had a better picture, as you can see over here. So we actually just put it in there on the bucket, and we know what the entire thing is over here. This was supposed to be parsley. And then it was planted on April 18th. There you go. There you have it. Nobody gets upset. Nobody is worried. And everybody learns to share and learns about community values and all of that. Spoons or tiny shovels. Now, I do encourage students to touch the soil. It's highly recommended to do that. And we always use organic soil and only organic soil. And I do recommend you to do that as well. So there won't be any harsh chemicals and dangerous chemicals in the soil that your students are touching. So there's no need for gloves. Gloves are expensive. And I've had actually educators who told me they went to buy gloves and they were so happy that I told them they don't need it because gloves were expensive. They're ridiculously expensive. So you don't need that. You don't need to have that expense. But there are some students who are clean obsessed, they are anxious or OCD, and we do want to make sure that they also are participating in the activities. Those are probably the most important students you want to be participating in the activities. And for those students, I recommend you have little spoons so that they instead of having to go with their hands if they don't like doing that or that makes them anxious, they can use spoons or very small shovels. You don't need big shovels or anything like that. You don't need gloves. Please do not bring gloves to your classroom. Have organic soil and have the students touch the soil. That's an important connection that they're making with nature when they touch the soil. Okay, so if there's no water in your classroom, you do need to bring water to your classroom because it is very time consuming and it is very frustrating for your students to have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to the bathroom with the watering can coming back. It's just a waste of time. You do want to have water present in your classroom, in your working space. If you don't have a tap water in your classroom, you want to have some sort of water storage container, and you do want it to have wheels, or you do need to put it on a cart or a wagon of some sort, simply because these are heavy. You want a lot of water to bring to your classroom. You do need to have some tools to bring it to your classroom and take it to fill it up and bring it back and things like that. These wagons could also be used to transport your seedlings to your caring station if they're not in your classroom. Which brings me to the next topic. You might not need these if you have water in your classroom and you don't need the carts or wagons to bring water to your classroom or your caring station. You probably do not need these. But if your caring station is far away and the buckets of seedlings are way too many, you probably need to have something better. It would make it easier for you. Your caretakers or the what's it called? The building managers might have some that you can borrow for your sessions from them and all that. But your students might be able to just carry them if you were wise enough and you actually use the buckets that I recommended or similar buckets that are sturdy and are not flimsy and they are not too heavy, and your students can just, move them around. Now, the topic of grow lights. Now, if you cannot possibly at all find good windows that are south, east, or west facing anywhere in your school, you might want to think about grow lights. Now, I am not by any means an expert in grow lights. This is a very complicated topic. And I am not a commercial grower. I've never done that. I've never dealt with too many grow lights. I used to live in a house for a period of time that did not have any windows, and for the seedlings that I was growing for myself, I did some research and I did use some, and I have been talking to some teachers that have some grow lights, and so I know a little bit about it, but I'm not an expert. So, and you don't need to be an expert for this. You're not a commercial grower. You're just a classroom grower, and hopefully you don't even need this. Go find a window, seriously. Another reason for that is, first of all, these are expensive. There's some expense involved that you have to put into it. And also another issue with these is that they are not going to replace sunlight. Sunlight is the best light for your plants. Um, 4 to 5 hours of sunlight is more than enough for your plants, and actual sunlight that's shining on top of it. But with grow lights, even with high density grow lights, you probably need to leave that on for 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours, for your plants to get that same amount of light that they would get from sunlight in 4 or 5 hours. So that's why you want sunlight, the real sunlight. If for whatever reason there is no way you can do that, you did find a window, but that small window, or you wanted to supplement your space with grow lights, then this is the grow light that I recommend. Full spectrum T5 fluorescent system is the best. There are so many confusing things. LED lights especially are getting way too confusing. Do not worry about it unless this is a hobby that you are very passionate about. I don't recommend you going wasting your time and finding different types of grow lights, because there are so many manufacturers from all over the world, and not all of them are trustworthy, and they do lie about the density and of their lights and all of that. So, and another thing is, all you're doing is growing seedlings and like things like lettuce and spinach and things like that. You're not growing fruit, so you don't need the high density red lights that's required for growing fruit and things like that that commercial growers would require. So go with this and you'll be happy. Hopefully you don't need it, but if you had to, go with this. And you do want to put it in a sturdy metal or wooden stand. You want to hang it over your table, and you want the chains to be adjustable, because, as I mentioned, you do need to have it running for a long period of time, and you do need it actually to be very close to the top of your plants. And as your plants grow, you do want to actually bring it up. So you want the chains to be adjustable. So these are the things that you have to have in mind. Also, if you have a grow light of this type, or any grow light essentially, because you do need to run it for 10 to 12 hours, and you do need to turn it off at night, because your seedlings do need to sleep at night. You cannot run it all 24 hours. You do need to switch it off, and you're probably not there because you're not going to be there for 10 to 12 hours, and you might forget one day or whatever. A light switch timer is crucial to have with your grow light, so that you can time it, so that it turns on and it turns off, and it gives your seedlings the 10 to 12 hours that they require, and you're good to go. Okay, so that's essentially all I know about grow lights, but hopefully that's good enough, because again, you're not a commercial grower, you just want to do this in your classroom. Okay, classroom gardens. We're almost at the end of this session, so I promised to keep it shorter. I did keep it shorter, even though we did go a little bit over half an hour. I apologize for that. So essentially, the message is that your classroom gardens don't need complicated, heavy, and expensive tools, and that's another benefit of classroom gardening versus school gardening. There's no need for big shovels and rakes and raised beds and big planters and no fancy watering irrigation systems, no fences, no approvals for anything. You don't need wheelbarrows or rakes, and the, it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler. They are relatively inexpensive, with amazing results and very empowering educational effects. When your students grow all of this food in your classroom without you having to go and put in a lot of expense into it, it's actually very, very exciting. Just essentially get the tools that I just told you, very simple, buckets and things like that, and then just add organic seeds, organic soil, and you're good to go. And that's what I want. If there's one thing that you take from this, is how amazing it is to actually do this in your own classroom and not worry about a school garden. If you have a school garden, that's fantastic. Let's take these seedlings that you grow in your classroom and plant them later. But start in your classroom. It's very simple to do. It's very easy to do. I really, really highly recommend that you seriously consider it. It's very inexpensive. You don't need a lot of tools, as I mentioned. Okay, we're at the end of the session. I would recommend you to go and do the homework. Hopefully, you did the homework from yesterday. These homeworks are very, very short, very sweet, and they're not going to take a lot of time out of you, but they are required for you to actually have your own reflection on the sessions we're having together and think about your own space, your own tools, your own resources, your own students, your own schools, and come up with that. Decide that one action item that you want to do this week that moves you closer to the classroom garden that you want to have this spring. Let's get this working. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's start growing with our students this year. So review the notes that you took from this class. Go and watch the replay. The recordings are all there for you. Download and print the workbook that I sent you by email. If you've registered for the class, you should have gotten an email with the workbook. Download the workbook, and then answer the workbook questions and come up with that one action that you are going to do. And hint, hint, the lesson plan giveaways that we're going to have on Friday has to do with these homeworks. So do your homeworks, and because you're going to need to submit parts of these homeworks on Friday to get the free lesson plans that I am giving away. Okay. So that's it for me. Tomorrow, in session 3, we are going to be talking about um, timing. So remember that I said for your classroom garden, you need space, you need tools and supplies, you need time, and you need to know what to do and what to teach. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about the time portion of it. My hope is that at the end of this free series, you are good to go. If you do join us for the OSS Classroom program that we are opening up later, these will also help you. And even if you don't join us, I want these to be also helping you, so that you can get started. Okay. Yeah, and that's it for me. Okay, so let me go to the questions. How many beans and plants is too few? Okay, let's put this here. Okay, so Judith is asking, how many beans plants is too few or too many? Oh, that's a very, very good question. Is it dependent on the space? Think about average size class space, 1 per child. Okay, good, very good, very, very good question. I am going to cover a little bit of this in the managing your time and also talking about the activities. But to answer your question here very quickly, because we did talk about space and I forgot to mention this, and we did talk about tools, and yeah, it's a good question. So it all depends on what you want to do and how many sessions you want to have and how many different things you want to grow. But let's talk about the 15-week program, the OSS program that I'm opening up doors for on Monday. Let's say we talk about that. For that program, every week of the 15 weeks, we are growing something in the classroom. And let's say that the classroom is 20 students. And those buckets that I showed you take somewhere around 9 to 10 party cups in each one of them. So if you have 20 students, you need at least 2 of those that will be filled in that session. And there is 15 of these sessions. So approximately you're going to need 30 buckets with, and for every session, you would need 1 party cup for each student. Can 2 students plant in 1 cup? Yes, they can, but with social distancing issues and things like that, we probably don't want to do that. Hold on, sorry. I meant to do the opposite. So yeah, that's how many you would need to do. You would need to have for every session. Is this going to be way too many? Not really, because it's not like they add up all the way to the end. Because let's say that you started your tomatoes, by the time you're planting basil, because the time for basil comes after the time for tomatoes comes, your tomato seedlings are big enough to be given away or donated or sold or whatever you're planning to do with it, or transplanted in your garden in the middle of May. So you'll be done with those. So those will be circled out of the system, out of your space, and new ones will be coming in. So it's not going to be, let's say you run sessions for 10 weeks, just to keep it simple, 10 weeks and 2 for every week, 2 buckets for every week. That would be 20 buckets. You're not going to need space for 20 buckets. You're probably going to need space for 10. Okay, so I hope that helps because some come in and some go out. I hope that answers the question. That was a very, very good question. Let me know if there's a follow-up question to that. Okay, great. I know that not everybody is here with us online. If you're watching this on the replay, please go and do your homework. Email me. Hold on. Let me put my email there. Oh, there's my email. LeilaM@kidsgrowingcity.ca. Let's make that bigger, actually, so you can see it better. Email me. Reach out. This week, I'm all here for you for free. Next week, I'm going to be opening the doors to Oasis Classroom. I'm going to be busy selling that one. And then when that closes, I'm going to be busy serving people who are in that program. So this week, I'm all yours. If you have any questions this week, ask me, email me. I'm going to be answering all of them. I'm going to be collecting those questions and putting them in our Friday session, answering them. But I will be answering your questions directly to you by reply as well. If you have questions about the program, please ask them, but I'm not going to answer them right away. We're going to talk about the program on Friday. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your questions. Let's make sure that I covered everything. Good, sounds good. I hope that this was helpful and useful. Go do your homework. And I'll see you tomorrow in session 3 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about managing your time in your classroom. Bye-bye.